Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Lynn, and on this channel I talk about MLMs, and I also talk about things that I find on the internet that I think are interesting, will be interesting to you, and affect the world in general. So today I am going to finish my video from last time that got messed up sound at the end. I am working with a headset this time because I cannot figure out what's wrong with my sound equipment. So this has been, knock wood, is that wood? I don't know. But it's been pretty good to me on calls in the past. So it's just going to have to work for this for now. Um, anyway, let's get to it. Okay, we are ready to go. I've got my notes. I've got my espresso in my big cup. And I've got, I think, all of my equipment all set up to not cut out this time. Please, 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 please. Okay. If you don't know me, my name is Lynn. I was in a very large MLM, Mary Kay. I don't make mince words about that, for about 10 years, first as a consultant and then as a director. And I was also in a few other MLMs, either because I just wanted their products and ended up signing on as a consultant, either not realizing it or realizing it and wanting to get the discount, or because I thought that they were going to be different because they didn't have inventory, which it doesn't matter. If they don't have inventory, they're still all absolutely awful. But in this video, this is going to be finishing up the video that I started last time, which was talking about how MLMs change the meanings of words when they're training you, and even before they train you to change your brain. So if you go back and watch that one, you'll see a little bit more about it. But the words that we use change the way our brain works. And they actually do teach this in certain ways. And when they're trying to teach you that what you think about, you bring about, which is from The Secret and from other types of positivity culture types of things. But it's fairly insidious how they do it, and it starts from before you're ever even a customer. So please go back and watch that one when you get the chance. You don't need to have watched that one to watch this one, though. So hang out with me for a while. I'd really love to thank all of my new subscribers. I'm really shocked, actually, that we're up to 30. I really love you all. Thank you so, so, so much. And please keep sharing, because the more you share about the insidiousness of MLMs in general, and Mary Kay in particular, the more we can just save people from losing the money that is so hard earned these days. So, all right, let's do it. So they've trained your brain. This is where were from last time, and in almost all these cases now, whether you accepted it or not, and whether you came into it realizing what they're doing, you can realize that, yeah, they started you out by saying things like, is there any reason why you couldn't have a party for me? And you know that that's a trick question. They have now trained your brain to know that the word no doesn't exist in your vocabulary anymore. And if you hear the word no, it doesn't matter, because no doesn't exist. And it's so hard to explain to you how this takes over your brain, how the world of no doesn't exist takes over your brain. And you don't realize that it's happening until you're out of it. Because the changes are really subtle, and they're teaching it to you. They don't teach you how to do it to others until later, until you are a director and now you're learning the tricks, right? So I didn't learn the things until I was a director, and now I was learning the tricks. And that's when you realize, oh my God, they did this to me and it worked. So it's kind of like with a lot of things, when you find out how the sausage is made, it kind of turns your stomach, right? And if, depending on the type of person you are, you might not want to do that anymore. My national sales director at the time gave a talk, and she literally said the words, if they say no, if you're asking them if they want to do the business, if they say no, no doesn't mean no. She said the words, no doesn't mean no. It just means tell me more. I need more information. Turn it around. Make that no an on. I don't know what that means, but whatever the way that she would always say it is, no doesn't mean no. Turn it into an on. Turn it on. I need more information, and then it'll be a yes. And that is truly what they would all say. No doesn't mean no to the directors. You need to just keep going back to them over and over again. So if you have people who never stop going to you to become a part of their MLM, it's because they're being told to never give up, because no doesn't mean no. No means give me more information, because who wouldn't want to do this amazing business, right? Who wouldn't want to do this amazing business is what they say. If they had all of the information that you have, they would want to do this business as much as you want to do this business. Therefore, you need to keep going to them and give them more information. So in this video, this one is going to be specifically the things that I came to realize they were doing to my brain, which said, no, this is wrong. This is not working. They did this to me, and I don't approve. And oh my God, I've been doing this to other people, and I don't approve. And the cognitive dissonance was so strong. It really became overwhelming, to the point where I did not know what to do with myself anymore. But let me go back. So when I wanted to become a director, this is when things become super intense as a consultant. And I've talked before in a previous video about all the things you need to do to become a director, and why, once you are a director, it is so hard to let that go, even if you're not meeting your requirements, and why directors end up spending so much of their own money to maintain their directorships. And part of that is also this idea that the only way to fail is to quit. So you wouldn't want to fail, would you? Right? But when you're trying to get into directorship, they want you to target certain women. They always want you to target certain women, but especially then they want you to target certain women, and it's specifically women who are already successful in something. Because women who are successful, they say women who are successful in one thing will be successful in something else. And I believe that, if you're successful in one business, you're probably going to be successful in another business. If you are the type of person who is a hard worker, you'll be a hard worker at anything. But they also, in Mary Kay, on the other hand, will tell you that this business is for everybody, and this business is for anybody who has skin. The product is for anybody who has skin, and they will tell you these stories of people who came from nothing and now they're a national sales director. And before the director that I was just telling you about, I'll say names. Nobody's innocent in here. So the director who used to say no doesn't mean no, that was Jeannie Curtis. And before she was my national, because she became a national while I was a consultant. Before she was my national sales director was Nancy Tejan. And Nancy Tejan was a director from the early days. She was one of the earliest national sales directors. And she literally she was broke when she started. They would tell the story about how she was working the graveyard shift packing shotgun shells when she became a Mary Kay consultant, and how she went from this single mom working the graveyard shift packing shotgun shells and went on to be a multimillionaire. And when I became a consultant, the magazine, there's the Applause magazine, which is the magazine that has the monthly information for consultants, but also would tell you who the highest checks were for the company. And Nancy Tejan was earning $75,000 a month checks from the company. So, that was pretty high 20 years ago. It's pretty high now even. She really did, she was one of the people who was one of the Mary Kay success stories. But she was in from the very, very, very early days. No doubt about it. And so there was this kind of double-edged story. I don't know, it was a sword. Anyway, it was a story. On one hand, being told, you only want to talk to women who are already successful in their lives and have the means to get started. Because remember, in DIQ, Director for Qualification, you need people to be placing orders so that you can meet your quotas, right? But on the other hand, you're always being told, don't discount anybody. Nancy Tejan was packing shotgun shells on the graveyard shift. So I would have people come to me and tell me that I was trying to save too many people. I was going to people who didn't have enough money to place orders, and that was harming me. Because I was still in this belief system of we can help women get out of bad situations by giving them this opportunity, right? I didn't yet really have the understanding that the other directors had, that if you don't find women who have a lot of money to start with, you're going to struggle through meeting your quotas every month. So we know, and it became very obvious later that it related to money, and it was because women who were already successful had money to spend on orders. But I didn't get that at the time. And I also was still under the belief that we were trying to make consultants who were going to sell product and build teams, which, while ostensibly that is the case, that is not really what they're ever telling you to count on. They're telling you to count on 1/3 on their way out, 1/3 being there right now and active, and 1/3 coming in new. And they're really telling you that for your own unit survival, you need to be looking at the people coming in and getting in the orders so that you have your $4,000, $4,500 a month keeping your unit alive. So at the time, I was not in DIQ yet. I was trying to get into DIQ. I was trying to get the people that I needed. You needed 12 people to go. It was 8 might have been 8, to go into DIQ. And I went to our fall advance. We didn't have retreats. Retreat goes backwards. So we call them advances. And I tried to talk to directors about this seeming contradiction. And I would say that successful women who had the money to do a starting inventory, they didn't have time to work this business. I was really an anomaly in part because I had at the time undiagnosed ADHD, right? And part of part of being neurodivergent is you want to do a whole lot of stuff outside of your main job, right? Right. So like before Mary Kay, I was going to work and I was working 45 hours a week, and I was also going to graduate school, and then I graduated from graduate school, um and I was now working a job, and sometimes I was working 70 hours a week, but it didn't matter. And I still did Mary Kay stuff, and I did a whole bunch of other things, and I had my crafting stuff, and I read books, and I was just always busy because that's the type of person that I am. So for me, I was the anomaly. And I knew, and I've always known, that it's very hard to find a clone of myself. Um, so for the most part, if you find women who are um, super busy and making a ton of money in my area, they're not the type of women who are going to also then go work a second business, right? They're just not. Not if they were making the type of money that you need to be able to just like throw money at this business to do a high, $2,400, $3,600 starting inventory. Um, and then there were people who had plenty of time, because there are people in my area who are stay-at-home moms or who are housewives, and they don't have anything to do, and they probably would love to have something to do, um, and they didn't have money to start their businesses the way that we were being told to have them start their businesses, because they didn't have their own jobs. And where I live is a very, very expensive part of the country. So you can't just say to your husband, who is supporting your family on one salary, hey, I'm going to need $3,600 to start my business, because that's not going to happen. And it's just like, I knew women who literally, they didn't have jobs. They were sitting at home with their kids, and they were like, I am bored out of my skull. I would love to do this business, but we literally don't have enough money to furnish our entire house, because like we're on one salary and this place is expensive. So so I was coming at this with like a really pragmatic question, and I asked a lot of different successful directors who were standing up in front of other directors and standing up in front of consultants who wanted to be directors. I was asking a lot of them what I should do about this problem, and what they suggested, and where this would take me. And the answer I got from every single one of them was, don't be so negative. And they would glom onto this idea that I said the words stay-at-home moms, or I said the words housewives. And they would say, well, I was a stay-at-home mom, or I was a housewife, and I'm doing it. I was like, well, first of all, you don't live in my area. It's very different if you live in the area that I live in than if you live we were at the time in Arizona, right? It was just an extremely different type of area of the country. I have never lived in a place that was super inexpensive to live in. And, I would say, listen, I'm being honest and I'm being pragmatic. I am not being negative. I'm not saying I can't do it. I am asking for help to work within the limitations I have. And they'd say, no, you're just being negative. You have to think of it differently. You have to change your mindset. You have to put your blinders on and don't think about the things around you. And I'm like, these are starting to sound like platitudes, but I'm going to try to figure this out myself, since nobody else seems to be able to help me. Okay, I need coffee. Give me a second. Okay. So, even when I got into DIQ, because I did get there, I became a director, but I would have hard weeks sometimes. And part of that was because I was pregnant, didn't know it, but I was always tired. I was so tired toward the end of my DIQ, and I'd call the DIQ hotline, and I was just really emotional, and I was desperately trying to stay positive because these people who were on the DIQ hotline, they were corporate, right? They were from corporate. They were hired to help people who were in director qualification. Um, and I would just beg for some advice beyond just the usual platitudes, right? And really, it was nothing. It it was like just literally it was like, are you meeting 3 new people a day? Are you holding 3 new appointments a week? Are you holding 3 interviews a week? That's another thing. An interview, if anybody from an MLM wants to interview you, it's not like they're interviewing you for a job. Anybody can have a job in an MLM. They're just sharing the business with you, and they're going to ask you at the end in a very insidious way how to they're going to ask you if you want to join the business, and it's going to be phrased in a way that no matter what you say, they're going to take it as a yes. But I really, it's really outstanding how everybody can be so taken by the way the company is run and the way that everybody above them talks to them that they can all just say, just follow the plan and it'll work, because the plan doesn't work. And what's more, everybody knows that the plan doesn't work. Because when you find out how many directors put their own money into their DIQ, and then how many directors who want to become nationals put their own money into becoming a national, it is sickening. It is absolutely sickening. So let's. Oh, I need another sip of coffee. It's unreal. Okay. So being told over and over how negative I was, it really gets to you after a while, because one, you're told in Mary Kay to never be negative, and then to be just assaulted with being told how negative you are is painful. It is painful. And then being told that the only way to fail is to stop working is truly broken, because they're saying this to people who are losing money. And they know it. It's so disgusting what they do to these women. Okay, so I finished DIQ. I became a director. Yay! Not really yay. I was pregnant when I became a director. It was not the best time. But as soon as you become a director, you start learning the tools to manipulate people. Okay? So what are the tools that you learn to manipulate people? First of all, they make it very clear that teaching language like turning no into yes is purposeful. And I told you the story about Jeannie Curtis. Her no doesn't mean no, turn that around, da-da-da-da-da, all that stuff. You go to directorship training, and one of the things they teach you at directorship training, they had this whole big thing about don't go into debt. And I was like, why are they doing this whole big thing about not going into debt? Is everybody going into debt? That sounds weird. Okay. And yet everybody goes into debt. Everybody, despite the class, despite every single person. One of the things that they teach you is how to give a shitty gift with a lot of praise to make your consultant feel special. Let me see if I can do this. All right, let's find a shitty gift. Here's a shitty gift. This is a little thing of teeny tiny beads. All right. Our consultant is named Susie. Our consultant is almost always named Susie. And here you go. Okay, here we go. This means I'm taking her hand into my hand. Susie, you did such a great thing this week. I really wanted to tell you how much your work means to me and to our unit. You have shown how absolutely fantastic you can do if you just put your mind to it. And I'm so proud of everything that you've done. I want you to take this and I want you to put it in your pocket. And every time you think that you might not be able to do it this week, I want you to reach into that pocket and I want you to touch this rock. I want you to rub the rock between your two fingers and think about what a great week you had this week. Because you know that I know that you can do it again. And you can do it over and over. And you have my absolute confidence that you can always, always do whatever you put your mind to. Thank you so much for being part of my unit. Now you learn to do that with a rock, but they come to you with these trays of rings. The trays of rings. They look so beautiful. You find out that those trays of rings, each ring costs under $1. And you've been doing so much just to get that stupid freaking ring. And now you've learned everything that went into manipulating your brain. So another thing that you learn is probably the thing that made me the sickest to my stomach. Last time I spoke about how consultants in their unit meetings would share information about their high weeks, the weeks that they had, like they'd have $1,000 week and they would share that information. And the directors would take that information and make it seem like it was more money than it was. They also would have these large meetings for all of the directors in the area. They'd be recruitment meetings for the multiple units. And sometimes they would have a national sales director there to run things. And they would line up the directors and have them share whatever their highest check was for their time in Mary Kay. And sometimes those checks would be pretty high. You'd sometimes have somebody who had a $10,000 check in a month from the company. And these were just their commission checks, not their sales. They never wanted to know what your sales were. But they wanted to know what their highest checks were. And it was the language of omission. Because once you become a director, you realize that usually that director has had one very high check, and it happened during your DIQ, which meant that all the stuff that you were bringing in during your DIQ, probably during your last month of DIQ when you were trying to do your highest production, that gave them their largest check, right? And they've never had one before that big before. And they probably won't have another one that big again unless they have another consultant go into DIQ. And what you realize is that you're never going to have a check that big unless you have somebody go into DIQ. It's not going to happen unless you have one of your personal recruits go into DIQ. And it's really disheartening when you realize that. When I was getting ready to leave and I talked to, my senior director, the person who was my director, who then became my senior director, left her directorship before I left my directorship, because once I was gone, she had to rebuild her entire unit because most of her unit production came from me and my unit. And she said to me, I was always hoping that $16,000 check would repeat itself, and it never did. And I was like, sure, it didn't, because that all came from the work that I did. Now, I never received a $16,000 check when I was doing that because I wasn't a director yet. She was the one receiving the high check for it. And you're never going to get that check unless you have somebody else in your unit build another full unit, at which point you then basically have to go through and do an entire other DIQ in order to build a whole other unit. And if you're not consistently bringing in all new people all the time, as soon as somebody leaves and becomes a director from your unit is dead. You've got nothing, and you're pretty much out. Yeah, I felt it. I felt her pain, but I also felt, my goodness, how many people came to these meetings and believed that those high checks represented consistent checks. It really is a sin of omission. You're telling people that these people are making these types of checks without ever saying they did that once. It's like when they call people American millionaire. All of these, every single one of these MLMs, when they say that somebody is a millionaire in the MLM, it means that they made $1 million in commissions. $1 million in commissions isn't in 1 year. That could be $1 million in commissions over 10 years. Now, that's still, for an MLM, pretty good. But you could make $1 million over 10 years just working a regular job. And by the way, a regular job in Mary Kay, speaking of changing the way you think, they call it a JOB. And then they backronym that to mean just over broke. And they really want you to believe that any job that is just paying you a salary isn't worthy, because you can't set your own hours, you can't make as much money as you want. But the truth is that, isn't it better to have money for the work that you're doing than not? Think about the fact that people would put in more time into Mary Kay than they would into a regular 9-to-5 job and not make as much money. What are you doing? Last time I said, somebody would say to me, you have a master's degree. What are you doing? Right? And they would actually speak down, talk down about people who were highly educated. Every so often you'd get somebody who was like, oh, she was a doctor and now she's director in Mary Kay. And it's like, what are you doing? Right? It is, they will speak as if any education you have is not worth it, because now you can do anything you want with this wonderful opportunity, and you didn't even need to have gotten that education that you got. That may have actually been one of the things that broke through my pink fog, because I put myself through graduate school and I paid my loans for my undergraduate myself. And so it wasn't something that I took for granted. To sum up, from the moment they're going to see you in the store or on the street or at your kid's baseball game, wherever they find you, they change your world in a way that they try to change your brain. They try to change you where no means yes, negativity is bad, pragmatism is negativity. When you start to begin to understand what's happening, you go through cognitive dissonance, and it's painful. You stay around despite the cognitive dissonance, and the reason is that all of your friends are there, and you, in a very cult-like manner, you know that you're going to lose those friends. You're going to lose those people in your life if you leave. And it's hard, especially the longer you stay, because the longer you stay, the more friends outside of it you lose. You desperately try to run your business without the tricks. And it doesn't work because it's not a legitimate business. If it were a legitimate business, you wouldn't need tricks to get people to do it. As a director, you cannot build and maintain a unit and keep your production up by being a good person and just teaching people to sell products. If you're a director watching this right now, go look at what your people are selling and look at what they're buying and ask yourself if they match. Because if they don't, they have shelves and shelves of product that they're not selling. I'm asking you to go match the two up and see if they match. And if you're a director who's not meeting production and who is placing orders every other month to meet your production, you need to stop. And you need to return your product and get out. Just get out. Get your money back. Get out. They're never going to tell you that yes, even after 10 years, you can return anything you purchased in the last year for 90% buyback. Send it back. When national sales directors tell you that you should only be working with the people who are working, what they mean is that you should only be working with the people who are buying, and that is not a legitimate way to sell product. That is why this is a multi-level marketing scam and not a legitimate sales business. Does this apply to other MLMs that don't have inventory? Yes, of course it does. Of course it does. When I was in Isogenics, do you think I drank all of the shakes that came into my house? No. I did not drink all of the shakes that came into my house. I did not drink all of the cleanse juice that came into my house. I still have shakes and cleanse juice on my shelves because I, there was so much coming in that was not getting drunk because it's just too much. Because in order to keep up your points, your damn points, right? And it's like, oh, well, there's somebody who was under you who bought this month, and if you don't have enough points, you're not going to get a check. Just stop. Stop buying stuff. They're all teaching variations on linguistic lies. Okay? Another linguistic lie. When you're on Facebook, Instagram, wherever, and you see somebody saying, my client lost all this weight, and they don't tell you how, because they want you to ask. That's a linguistic lie. They're turning it on to you so that you have to ask the questions so that then you are opening the conversation with them. It's a linguistic lie, right? That's now, oh, well, now you've opened up the conversation with the consultant and they can now speak to you. Not only is it a linguistic lie, but it also avoids the can spam act. If they invite you for a business lunch, just a one-on-one meeting to talk about our businesses, right? But you know that they're in an MLM, they're trying to get you to join their MLM. I had one time where a man said to me, my wife is going to want to talk to you about your business. And I was like, oh, that's great. No, she had a different MLM beauty business. She wanted me to leave mine and come join hers. She was selling $750 a jar Korean face cream. No. And of course, there is the ever popular inviting you to a business meeting that turns out to be a recruiting event. It's never a business meeting. It's always a recruiting event. They're all recruiting events. Everything is recruiting. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate you. Please, oh gosh, there was a time where I really just hated this phrase. Please hit that subscribe button and like. I really do appreciate all of you, and I appreciate the shares. And I do hope that you come back next time and see what else I've got to say. Thanks so much. This time I'm actually going to get to the I cannot get my words out of my mouth, so I'm gonna start again and